Western civilization is moving closer to a point of irreconcilable, unstable equilibrium, as frighteningly increasing numbers of people trust nothing. Media, academia, and especially the governments are no longer held in high esteem. Regaining trust is often impossible after betrayal. However, transparency is essential to any healing process, and that is the essence of the Don Sullivan Show. Please listen to the team explore, probe, and debate cutting-edge science, technology, and computing. Play ball!
Welcome to a very special episode of the Don Sullivan Show. As you can hear, Don is currently on the road, and you're going to learn more about that very shortly. I'm your co-host, Jersey Steve. First, we want to thank our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by License Fortress, the industry's first and only software asset management firm to offer both a financial and legal guarantee at its highest level of service. Whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, or VMware, License Fortress helps organizations stay compliant, avoid audits, and save money. You can learn more at licensefortress.com. And please support our producer, our wonderful producer, Bill Axt, by visiting axtinc.com. That is AXTINK.com. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel and help support his efforts to create humorous animation, as well as run our website, all while researching a cure for baldness.
Well, hello, everyone, and the vast audience of the Don Sullivan Show. Welcome back to the Don Sullivan Show. Today will be the start of episode 2, when we actually start on our 12-day trek, an 11-day hike up Mount Kilimanjaro. We are at Narquai Ranch or Camp, and we're about to see what's going to happen here. We drove through the savannah for about 10 miles, or a little dust devil, or little tornado, really, which was quite amazing. It looked a lot scarier than it was, but then we actually had to stop in the road for a number of giraffes and other interesting animals, including zebras. Supposedly there's elephants around here. So let me apologize to start with here if I repeat myself in some of these segments, because I'm really doing this quite live. I'm literally engaging in free flow of thought as I record everything that is happening during this trip. I suspect that it'll get a little bit more strained as we start on our epic journey up the volcano. But I also know Stephen will, in the final product of these 4 episodes, be quite adept at stringing them all together and trying to minimize my my repetitions and hopefully not contradictions of anything that I say. Please again also excuse me if I pronounce things wrong. I for some reason have a mental block on Narquai Camp, but I guess it starts with an ND. So people tell me just to call it a ranch. It's a very, very nice place overall. But I'll spend some time this afternoon talking to you about the camp and some more about the accommodations as well as the surroundings. We are going to be going on hikes both of these next 2 days for acclimatization purposes. And again, I'll probably mention this again, but we're at about 6,000 feet here before we actually start the real hike up Kilimanjaro. So again, welcome back to the second episode of the Climbing Kilimanjaro series. This particular episode is yet to be named, but I think we'll have an appropriate name for it as we move along. And I'm glad to have you here, and I'm glad to have you join with us, at least after the fact, as we go on this epic journey. Does look like there's going to be 8 people in our particular group. My friend Sean Campbell from New Jersey and Virginia. He is a venture capitalist lawyer at 35 years old and looks to me to be in pretty good shape overall. We'll see if he can handle the altitude. which is always a problem. I guess I should actually reference that a little bit. What happens is, no matter what kind of physical condition you're in, no matter how strong you are, your body's ability to process oxygen when it gets to high altitudes is somewhat unpredictable. Generally speaking, at around 14,000 plus feet, I've certainly experienced this in Colorado on a regular basis. Your oxygen gets down into the oxygen content of your blood gets down into the 80s. At sea level, it should be 100 if you're healthy, and in Denver, it's about 95 at a mile high. But when you're up at about 14,000 feet, it can dip down under 90 if you're, again, in good condition and somewhat acclimatized. But when you get to really high altitudes, as happened to my poor niece Shannon, who was a world-class javelin thrower at the time in 2017 when we went to Mount Everest Base Camp, she actually dipped down to about 62 when we hit base camp at over 17,000 feet, and we actually went over 18,000 to get down into base camp at 17,594 feet. Her oxygen level was in the low 60s, and she got extremely sick for an entire night. And that's a story for another day, but she was amazingly courageous in getting out on that, or happened to be day 8 of that particular hike, that particular epic tour in 2017. But again, a story for another day. We'll see how things go here. We'll see if Sean can handle it. It'll be an interesting experiment, and I will be pretty open as to what happens to him and other people who will go unnamed as we start this hike. But today, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of things, as I said, some hikes out in the wilderness with armed guards, and looking for animals, which you've already seen. It's a pretty amazing place overall. So let me get back to you as soon as there's something to report on. Again, apologize up front. This is very free-flowing thought. We like to keep it very real here on the Don Sullivan Show, very real and fun, to give you a true depiction of the nature of everything that we're doing under that guise of science, technology, and computing. So until a few hours from now in the next segment, we'll see you. Well, hello, folks. Today, we've arrived at Nadarakwai Camp. It's near the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, which is what will serve as the location for our initial acclimatization, as well as we are going to start a hike up the big volcano sometime tomorrow. It's an amazing kind of place, and the savannah sort of really reminds me of, say, the southwest of Colorado, northwest of New Mexico, except with a lot more bush trees and a lot of very big animals. So just driving in here, we went through literally small herds of giraffes and zebras. And as I'm sitting here right now looking through the screen of the tent, the big tent that I'm in, I'm seeing some form of monkeys running around. I think they're baboons, but a lot of them running around, and they're very curious. I suppose they like this with all tourists around here. And it's all very interesting. Feel totally fine. There is nothing in particular that is bothering me very much, and I expect this all to at least initially start off pretty well. So it's just a short segment here before me and this 8-person group, along with my friend Sean, who will make some comments later, we will all get started sometime tomorrow. We're going to go on a night drive to search for game at night after dark to see try to see if we can see how the various different animals in the local area, which are plentiful to say the least, as I just mentioned, behave, and tomorrow we'll be, as I said, starting up the mountain. So we'll get back. I'll end this short segment, and we'll get back to you tomorrow. So until then, see ya. Well, hello, folks, and again, welcome back to the Don Sullivan Show. This is the second episode of the series of climbing Kilimanjaro. So, as I said to you at the end of the last episode, that we were in Naraquai Ranch camp, nice place with separate tent buildings. That's the only way I can describe them. It absolutely poured rain this afternoon, and later tonight we're going on a night safari, and that should be very interesting. There's lots of animals around here, monkeys and giraffes everywhere, elephants apparently. They don't really have many cat predators here. I think that's because they keep them out. The Maasai tribe uses this area for their grazing and the movement of their livestock, the cattle, sheep, and goats around as well. So even though they don't really say it, the fact that when we're out hiking, which we have a few times now, there are armed guards with us. So they did say that every once in a while a predator, a lion or a leopard gets in, but they quickly leave. And I'm guessing that they don't do that voluntarily. But it's an amazing place, and this is going to be an amazing hike, which again we will start tomorrow morning, but I will get back to you with a different segment that discusses tonight's nighttime drive. I won't call it a safari, but nighttime drive around this ranch area, looking for all the animals that are here. So until then, we will see you. Well, folks, I'm back, and here I am in the Tanzanian Serengeti in the middle of the night with all kinds of noise from various different animals all around us as we acclimatize at only 6,000 feet before we start up the big hike and the big mountain. We made use of the time tonight. We had an incredibly nice dinner as we were spied down upon by various different monkeys who were throwing things at us all around the canopy of trees that we were sitting under that were above the simple restaurant area that we were eating in. That was actually kind of entertaining. And then we went on a nighttime animal camera safari hunt. I guess that's what you'd call it. Or some of those words I just used. We were looking for animals in the night. Doing something that probably in the United States is illegal, using a spotlight to spot them. But everything that we saw, all the giraffes and the different types of impala and kurus, they called them, along with many, many monkeys and dozens of giraffes. And then finally, at one point, we saw big, big footprints and extremely big poop. It was very recent, and we knew that we were near what the guides knew was a series, at least a mother and a young elephant. Well, we searched around, went back and forth, drove down some very precarious four-wheel drive hills through dry riverbeds, and boom, there they were. They were scurrying away from us, but there was about 8 of them, maybe 10. And heck, the biggest one there, and they were all female, I believe, was the size of a damn school bus. But they were scurrying through the brush, and we followed up on them, chased them a little bit, and then they finally disappeared. But that was absolutely amazing. We were joking that here we are as we're getting ready. We did about a 3 or 4 miles worth of a hike today, and we're a little bit tired. I've got a blister already, and my back is hurting. I did take a muscle relaxer, but holy cow, we're out there chasing elephants at night. And it's a pretty special and amazing, unforgettable night. And I thought I would check in with another little segment here, but I will get back to you when we start our ascent of Mount Kilimanjaro. And until then, see ya. Well, hi again, folks. This is Don. I'm back. We did this incredible night safari last night, in which we drove around looking for animals and their behavior at night. We saw tons of giraffes and zebras and monkeys, and they are loud. Until it gets really dark, they are making all kinds of noise in their own interactions. We saw impalas and other types of four-legged creatures. We saw these huge rabbits that bounce up and down in a order of magnitude more than the rabbits that we see in the United States. We saw the most amazing thing that we did is the guides who were driving through the forest here in a very capable four-wheel drive vehicle were amazingly adept at both looking for the animals as well as driving on the very, very rough terrain in the pitch black. Using a spotlight to find them, probably very disruptive to the animals, but it's only for a moment or so when they kind of scurry around and we drive past them. But at one point we saw what was clearly huge footprints and little footprints alongside of them, and very, very large deposits of dung, and we knew that we were near elephants. It was very recent, and so we kept looking around and driving through the brush, and eventually we found them. And it wasn't one or two, it was an entire herd of massive elephants, and we actually drove in back of them as they were moving along. The one matriarch, I suppose, was literally the size of a small house. And they didn't want us around, so they were leaving, but we were able to follow them for quite some time. It was utterly amazing. And it's amazing how quiet they are, despite their enormous size, how efficient they are at moving along. Both the small ones, the young ones, as well as the large ones, the adults. So we did that for a while, and then we came back, and then getting up today here at dawn, getting some breakfast, because now we're headed up from 6,000 feet probably to 9,000 feet tonight on the way up the mountain. We will be very careful. Many of my group has chosen not to do the Diamox, the altitude sickness drugs of any kind. They do make you jittery. They are very caffeine intensive, and they have other problems with them. So people don't like to take those things in general until, of course, they have some kind of altitude problem. We will be over 16,000 feet for 5 days, but not tonight. Tonight is just going to be up and around 9,000 feet. We will have camps. I will be carrying my day pack, even though there are people who want to carry that for me. I'm a hiker, and there's an ethic to carrying the day pack, so I plan on carrying the day pack at least until I can't anymore. I did have some pretty serious back problems yesterday, but I think that was more due to the stiffness from traveling than anything else, so we'll see how that goes today. So we will be 9 days going up. Probably, I think we summit, if we summit, on the 7th day, and I'll have lots of pictures and lots of commentary as we go on then. So until then, let's end this segment, and we will talk soon. So see ya. Hi folks, it's Don again. I promised you that I would give you an overview on the Great Rift Valley. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about here you could look up yourself on Wikipedia or any number of other hundreds of sites. Heck, just ask Gemini, I suppose. But what I want to do is give you a perspective on the Rift Valley, both from a geological perspective as well as a political cultural perspective, from the standpoint of me being a young distance runner back in the 80s. So to start off with, the Rift Valley itself is an enormous split down the far eastern part of Africa. It really goes from the Red Sea down to Mozambique for what is basically a couple of 1,000 miles, and it will eventually, 50 million years from now, result in an entire massive part of Africa breaking off into effectively an island, but a island the size of Greenland, all the way from Somalia through Kenya through Tanzania, all the way again into the area around Mozambique. And it's part of the African plate, but there are subplates, subtectonic plates down below the East African area that will, as I said, 50 million years from now, move off further to the east and effectively create, I don't know if you'd call it a separate ocean, but it'd certainly be another sea that will eventually rush in and separate those two parts of what is now Africa. There are hundreds of volcanoes, the largest of which is Mount Kilimanjaro, and that's what myself and the hopefully future governor of New Jersey, the questionable state of New Jersey, I don't want to call it the great state, will be climbing on tour over the next 10 days. And 5 days after that, I'll be doing a safari in the Serengeti area of Kilimanjaro National Park. So I actually had to look it up, but I wanted to be precise with the geological references to how the African plate through the Rift Valley, or the East African Rift, and that divergent plate boundary, as they refer to it, are going to eventually split up into what's called the Nubian plate and the Somali plate. Not really sure why they gave it those names, but that's what they did. So we're talking about the countries of Somalia, down through Ethiopia and Kenya and Tanzania, and all the way down into Mozambique. And from a whole different perspective, an athletic perspective, a global athletic perspective, this is the area of the world that produces the greatest distance runners that the world has ever seen. Now, every country has its great runners, and Sebastian Coe and Steve Cram and Steve Ovett from the United Kingdom, and Marty LaCouri and Jim Ryan and Steve Scott, and these are all contemporaries of mine from the 80s or 70s and 80s in the United States. And of course, the United States has different types of runners, the sprinters more than anything. But it's pretty amazing the degree of the percentage of people that come from this area of the world who aren't necessarily great athletes in other areas. Of course, we know of great basketball players that have come from Africa, but that's the other side of Africa. It's West Africa. That's the Nigeria, where Hakeem Olajuwon came from, and Joel Embiid and Pascal Siakam are from Cameroon. But that's the entire other area. And one of the things that's really important to understand, Africa is absolutely, absolutely huge. So it's about twice the width of the United States in the northern area of of Africa if you're going from what's effectively the Arabian Sea all the way across into the Atlantic. But this Great Rift Valley area is not only an incredible geologic concept to study and to understand, with the most prominent feature of it all being Mount Kilimanjaro at 19,300 plus feet. But it produces this very unique capability. And I'll tell you, when you go to Kenya, you go here, as I am in Tanzania, every single person, male or female, this is true in Ethiopia as well, is incredibly fit. And whether they're tall or short, I've always thought this, that they just seem like and I don't even ask if they are athletes or not, but you look right at them and they certainly look like distance runners. They look like people who are incredibly just overall healthy. So that's pretty amazing. There are a number of different mountains, volcanoes in this area, Mount Kenya, and a number of others that are very powerful, dormant, not extinct volcanoes, and Kilimanjaro is that. Kilimanjaro is, of course, a tremendously popular tourist hike. There are very few areas that are technical at all, maybe 2.5 from what I've read and talked to other people about in terms of the level of actual rock climbing. A couple of different areas. I don't remember the name of it, but there's a wall. It takes about 2 hours to climb up, and it looks very similar to much of what I have already done many, many times in Colorado. Even we did a Don Sullivan show on climbing Mount Bierstadt, and the very top of it, the last quarter mile, is nothing but extremely difficult boulders to get up and down, and that's what this looks like. Very similar to some of the areas I was in this summer in Austria as well. But that's what you expect when you're trying to get up very high mountains, especially even if they are, for the most part, long tourist hikes, many days with a lot of altitude. Of course, the altitude is the big thing, even coming from Colorado and having spent a lot of time this year or last year in 2025 at high altitudes. I have to be relatively careful about it, especially with some of my other medical conditions. And a lot of different tourists who end up coming here and just thinking, mostly kids, a lot of in the United States, particularly the East Coast, and think they're going to be able to just climb up with the tour guides and they're going to take care of them and then come down, and they wind up getting very sick. Altitude sickness, which can be very, very serious. It can lead to, in the worst case, pulmonary edemas and so on. But in the best case scenario, you can throw up. And I've seen this before. I've seen people who spend 3 or 4 days at altitude, 16,000 feet and above, start throwing up like it's their freshman first case of beer kind of sickness. And your oxygen level gets down into the 60s. So at sea level, it should be right at 100. And if you're sick or something wrong with you, maybe in the 80s. In Denver, most people will sit around 95. When I'm up in the 14,000 foot range, your oxygen can go down to about 80. But if you get down into the 60s and you spend a few days in the 60s, in terms of your oxygen content in your blood, you can get very, very sick. So you have to really take care of that. And to be honest, it has nothing to do at all with your level of fitness. It can just hit anybody at any time. So despite the fact that I've spent dozens of days at 12,000 feet to 14,000 feet in the last 9 months, who knows what'll happen. Plus, given the popularity and the crowds that go up and down this mountain, this is the best time of the year. It's the dry season. It'll start getting into the rainy season in March. So we're in the middle of February, early February still, actually, that we'll have a lot of time to get up and down, hopefully without any rain at all. It's pretty dry. It's not that hot. Certainly not Arizona kind of hot. So it looks like it's going to be excellent conditions overall for a good climb up for 10 days back and forth. So We won't talk too much about some of the unstable political aspects of these different countries. What I will tell you is that whenever I come to any of these areas, any of these countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, I haven't been to Tanzania before, but it certainly follows the exact pattern that I've seen in the other East African countries, which is a pattern, again, that I saw 40 years ago when I was a pretty serious distance runner and I competed with so many of those great East African distance runners. They were all extremely nice people. Very, very competitive they were, almost in a comical sense at times. I'll maybe give you some tidbits and some anecdotes of that as we are climbing up and I can barely breathe over the next 10 days. It will be interesting and will be experimental to see how I respond to the various different medications that I'm on, particularly the beta blocker vasodilator named Cardaeval that I've been on for now 7 years. It does seem to bother me. It does seem to cause my breathing to get out of sync at about 13,000 feet. It has many times this year. That apparently is normal. And a vasodilator acts like a governor in your heart. The beta blocker part of it, I guess. I mean, I'm getting a little bit over my skis talking about the specific drug interactions here, but the beta blocker aspect of it, from what I understand, just simply governs your heart and will allow it to go over about 180 beats. And when you're really pushing it up at high altitude, your body would like your heart to go faster than that. I certainly, as a distance runner back in 40 years ago, could push up to about 220. And when your heart is not in sync with how much you're breathing, it becomes very weird. It's not like you're desperately out of breath as if you just finished a race. It's more like you just can't get your breath, your breathing, and your heart in sync. So we will see what that's like. I will give you an honest report on how beta blockers, or at least with me, behave for 5 days or so at these altitudes we're going to be at. So I will get back on the recording here sometime tomorrow when we actually start to hike. So until then, we'll see you. Folks, I'm going to throw in an interim segment here. I've got to sort of reiterate some of the things that happened last night in that amazing safari drive through the Narakwai Ranch at night. When we saw those elephants, and I just can't get over this, we saw them across a particular dry riverbed, which required our drivers to use immense skill to get through that drive. I've driven a lot of four-wheel drive in my Jeeps in Colorado, and this was equivalent to certainly that. But they were able to get through the brush, and we were able to follow the elephants for quite a ways, for a few minutes. To be honest, as I said in the previous segment, it probably wasn't the most comfortable thing for the elephants, but there was about 8 of them, and it was just utterly stunning how quiet they were, moving through thick brush and so on. We didn't see any predators. Again, as I've said before in this episode, that's most likely because even though the staff doesn't tell you, they're intentionally kept out. This is an area that is shared with the Maasai tribe. We saw early this morning the Maasai herders with sheep and goats and mostly cattle, very slim cattle, so not quite as fattened up with hormones and so on. They're all grass-fed here, they're not grain-fed, so they're skinny cattle that they drive through these lands. So having serious predators around wouldn't be a good idea. So I'm sure there's a bunch of things they don't very intentionally tell the clients, the tourists that come through these places. What I am going to do is spend a little bit of time in the next segment going through some history of the Great Rift Valley, geological history of the Great Rift Valley, political history of the Great Rift Valley, history of Tanzania. Maybe even mention Phil Bai, the world record holder in the mile in 1972 at 350.1 from Tanzania. Generally speaking, Kenya is much more known for its great distance runners, but Tanzania's got some as well. And of course, we're very close to the border of Kenya. They get along quite well politically, just to add that in. We will also talk about, again, the physical or the geophysical properties of what's happening with the Nubian plate, which is breaking off from Africa to form a new continent and a new ocean in between them, and it will actually be an ocean as defined geologically as opposed to a sea. Of course, this is within 30 to 50 million years, but still, it's quite interesting. So we'll spend some time talking about that in the next segment, and that's mostly because we're still waiting around for our rides to get to the point in which we start the hike. So we are going from 6,000 feet, and we will be just above 10,000 feet when they drive us up to the gate in which we will actually be starting the hike. So until I get back to you with some academic lecture here in a minute, we will see you. Hi folks, it's Don. We're back here at Camp 1 at about 12,000 feet. And apparently I'm talking a little bit too loud in this recording as we're sitting in our camp, Sean and I, our actual tent, the glamping tent in which we actually have cots. And this is Camp 1 up here on Kilimanjaro with, it's been raining all day. Initially we were going way too slow until we took the initiative upon ourselves to make a very polite New Jersey request of a couple of the guides to allow us to proceed with a little bit more alacrity. And we successfully made it to this rather massive Camp 1 here at 12,000 feet on Kilimanjaro in the middle of the very light rain. It's not that cold, it's about 40, but we got up here. We are here for night. It's only about 4 or 5 mile hike at the most. To get up here. Tomorrow will be a lot more. I'll have a lot more for you tomorrow. It was kind of an eventful day. To be terribly honest, we wasted a lot of time with, I guess you would call it the Tanzanian level bureaucracy. But we got here, and we are happy, and we are very happy with our now personalized guides, slightly ahead of the group that we were with. So I will be back to talk to you tomorrow. See ya. Hey folks, we're back here at Kilimanjaro, having fun in the pouring ice, sleet, and rain, but with great service on the mountain from the local army that is supporting us as we attempt to get our ways up the mountain. Sean and I are here in the tent together as they are cleaning up outside this massive endeavor of humanity that's trying to work through all of the various different endpoints of our meals and what they have to do tomorrow. But we're sitting just below 14,000 feet, and it hailed like hell today. Fortunately, we were able to get into our tents a little bit earlier than most of the group that we were with, because quite honestly, we didn't follow the rules of the leader as much as we probably are supposed to. We got here a little bit early. So we're doing pretty well. Both of our metrics that matter, our oxygen content is in the mid-80s, so we're doing fine. Unfortunately, a couple of folks in our group have not done so well today, so that number may be diminishing. We can see the top of the mountain, and there's a lot of snow up there because it was raining down here today, so it was snowing up there. Like I said yesterday, apparently the rainy season has come significantly earlier because every day we've been here, it's been pouring during the day. We are cold. It is in the 30s at night, but when we stick ourselves inside a sleeping bag with a liner, it does seem to work. So let me introduce you to my friend Sean Campbell, somebody you may be hearing about a lot in the future, but we'll leave that for him to mention at any given point in time. But so what do you think, Sean? How have we done here so far this last few days?
I mean, we've done great. We have just been going at our own pace, a brisk pace, responsible but brisk pace up the mountain, and we're in great spirits because we're doing it responsibly but our way nonetheless. And just a lot of interesting commentary. Don, you want to talk about the porters and the ant farm of porters?
Yeah, so the strangest business model I have ever seen in my life. They actually, and it's hundreds of them, literally, these porters that break down these camps. And I mean, everything, the dining tents and the personal tents, the cots that we have, all the food, all the bathroom tents, everything gets broken down, and then they literally put it in somewhat chaotically but well organized bags, right? Bags,
yes,
and they go on their heads, and then they walk faster than us
with
because
no poles,
with no
they
poles
just
or
have
anything.
balance on these rocks.
Because, I don't mean to be specifically referring to any particular area in the world, but there's a lot of 4-minute milers out there that have never run a race in their lives, which I have no doubt within about 2 years of training could do that. They are incredibly fit, and they're just taking care of us.
Men and women.
Yeah, there are women out there as well.
Just as fit.
Who are just they're very strict about the 20 kilogram limit, 33 pounds, and that's what they get to carry, and they beat us to the next site, and they have camp set up by the time we get here. And fortunately, Sean and I got here today just before the hail really started.
Yes.
And much of our group did not. Yes, we did a nice job with that. So we're sitting at 14,000 feet, right about there, like I said.
Should we talk about the workers' comp issue?
Well, Sean, this is not a political show. This is not a political show, but this is kind of I guess this would fit under the realm of science, technology, and computing. When you look at science being health science, it is absolutely utterly amazing here, and I'll let Sean, who is a very high-end
there's some economics
litigator.
to it.
It's economics. I guess we can get into that. But here's the science. It's the science of public health. Every one of these porters has no insurance. I don't mean general insurance. I mean workman's comp level insurance if they fall on a rock that they're jumping up and down.
And apparently this happens from time to time, as you would imagine. And so what the porters do, and they have a self-organized mechanism for doing this, is they each contribute some of their pay to a general fund that then basically helps compensate them or their families should there be an injury. And this is how they essentially
and let me reemphasize,
pay their own workers' comp.
Not the American companies
Right.
that run these tours with some of the worst communication and organization I've ever seen. I won't mention any, but I probably should shut up about that as well. But no, they don't have anything that resembles any kind of workman's comp insurance, and we really are sitting here, we can't figure out why. It's a very normal thing to them. They explain this to us as with their typical happy demeanors, but it is well, I think the word depraved is probably a reasonable term to use in that regard. And hopefully we won't actually spot this, but you know what? It makes me want to tip more. And I don't normally think that way when I'm being coerced to tip. That's another story. But that's a problem.
But beautiful biodiversity out there. What you can see at 13,000 feet. It's amazing how you just see new plant life that you didn't see anywhere else. Just the immense beauty of
vastness.
Biodiversity. Yeah,
like the vastness of the Don Sullivan Show.
That's right.
And Don Sullivan Show's audience, and So we will get back to you for the next day tomorrow night, and we will talk about what we accomplished or didn't accomplish. We'll check our oxygen levels again tomorrow.
Yep.
And we'll see where that brings us. 'Cause as with all Don Sullivan shows, we never know what's going to happen next. But I won't say until the end of the show. But we will. And until tomorrow, see ya.
Take care.
Good morning, folks. Day 5 here, and it's not too bad this morning. Here at around 13,000 feet. Try to get a little bit less silly today as we acclimatize. I wanted to make a couple of points before we start on this day 4, actually, of the hiking. Day 6, I guess, of the actual trip. We were advised at one point earlier in the trip, at the beginning of the trip, that it probably wasn't necessary because we were out of the malaria zone to not really take our malaria pills, those which had been prescribed to me by the State Department's travel clinic, and because of the different drug interactions, and we were out of the zone of Sean is pointing out that there are mosquitoes here at 13,000 feet, and there are. Certainly, if you go to Trail Ridge Road and Rocky Mountain National Park, there are. It's one of the most mosquito-infested areas that I have ever experienced outside of the swamps of the depths of New Jersey, and a couple of areas in around Portland, Maine, too. But the point is we're not taking the malaria drugs, and that's totally fine, I think, from up here. But when I get down a little bit later, hopefully when we get down from the peak in a week, I'm also going to be going on safari. We'll be doing a separate Don Sullivan show on that particular trip in Serengeti National Park, and that is malaria zone, so I will have to restart all those pills. Fortunately, I didn't discard them, and I still have them. But that's just a note for this morning as we get going on what is going to be a relatively short day of probably about 6 miles or so, and we'll stay at about the same altitude. So, and then we start up after that. So I might not talk to you until that point, and let's see how things go. And until then, see ya. Hello, folks. Here we are again, back at the Don Sullivan Show in the wonderful, foggy and rainy and sleety 14,500 foot spot that we're having on day 3 for lunch here in Kilimanjaro National Park in Tanzania. And Sean had a little difficulty last night, but you know what? He's a tough guy, right. Tough New Jersey lawyer. Yep. You want to tell him about a little bit of trouble you had? Just a little bit, Sean?
I'd love to. It was quite a thrill. I really believe in peace through strength, and today was a perfect example of that. There was a standoff. It started 2 days ago when I told our...
Hold on here. Actually, Sean, I was more we'll get to that.
Oh, sorry.
I was more talking about the biological issue you had last night.
Oh, that, yeah. Well, I was feeling great all day at an altitude higher than I'd ever been before by about 1,500 feet. And yeah, I had a very minor headache, but it was the kind I get when I go skiing in Colorado, so no big deal. And then after dinner, I was feeling great, and then all of a sudden, it got bad, and then nausea came, and then for an hour and a half, I was just throwing up, and I was having the worst headache of my life as somebody who doesn't get migraines. And I think I was ultimately saved by the Tylenol and the Nalgene bottle, which is just warm water in a bottle and a sock or 2 socks that you just basically just hold in your crotch all night, and it kept me very warm, and I got a great 9 hours of sleep so that I was well rested for the standoff.
Yeah, so we'll get back to that because that's just too entertaining not to. Of course.
You got to build.
We've been building the ultimatum, but we'll get to that. I, of course, had to get up at least 5 times during the night, which is just great when you're inside of a sleeping bag and a liner, and it's 20 degrees outside and light snowing, and that's enough TMI on that one, I suppose. But yes, I will attest to the fact that Sean did pass out and was now is fine here in the middle of day 3. For some reason, we're going to take 10 days on this. We haven't quite figured out exactly why it's that far. Yes, the overall operations here are not exactly a portrait of efficiency, and again, I blame the various different American companies that are in charge of this whole thing. So also, if we feel a little bit dopey, well, that's what happened at 14,000 feet too. You saw that when I was on top of Mount Bierstadt. And I certainly am now. And, I really don't care that much because we're going to be very open about this overall experience in these 3 to 4 episodes, probably 4 episodes of the Don Sullivan Show as we move along. So we've had a little bit of disagreements with some of the trip leadership. And those disagreements basically are that we want to hike and other people don't. I not all of them, but it just seems that way. And sometimes these tours, which is one of the reasons why I find them both very useful, because you go to places you don't usually, and incredibly difficult because often you'll be in a situation where somebody or a guide wants to allow somebody or some few people to dictate the pace, which winds up being absolutely nothing like a 4-year-old. So without going into too much detail with that, Sean used his future international negotiating skills, and one of our party had to be transported out, which is normally the case, because again, it's part of the business model of these various different tours, in the sense that they don't really validate the level of fitness or medical conditions. They do, of course, for CYA purposes, take all your data, or maybe for more than that, but they don't really evaluate people. They just take their money. And so one of our friends, a really nice guy who I won't name, had to be choppered out. And during that particular chopper event, we kind of had a come to Jeter moment. So Sean wants to talk about it here. So go ahead, Sean.
Again, quite a thrill. So on day 1, when our leader told us that he did not want us walking at our own pace with some of his guides, not even our own pace, but the pace of his guides.
Guides he assigned.
Yes. I told him that if we had to, could not walk at that pace, that I would not be making the summit, because I would be getting a helicopter and going home, because I am just not going to do the trip that way. I'm going to do it the way I see fit to do.
This is what us
within
American
reason.
hikers do.
Yes, and so, ironically, just before, while we were getting ready here on day 3 to hike, he tried to override that tenuous understanding we had, and said today, in part because of I threw up last night, he said today we're all going to hike as one group. And immediately I just was not going to accept that. I refused to participate in that. My conscience would not permit it. And I said, no, we're going to hike in 2 groups. And if that's not the case, then I'm going to be getting on the helicopter with the person who's leaving. And just
how about that?
Just at that moment, the helicopter, like the heavens parted, and the helicopter just started surrounding the skies. And the guide goes, well, we can talk about it later. I said, nope, the helicopter's here. We have 2 minutes. I love time pressure in a negotiation. I will get on that helicopter. I don't back down from my ultimatums. And after a brief standoff, he suddenly said, well, then you could sign a waiver. And I said, that's fine.
Hey, whooped out that waiver. How amazing. I don't know what the waiver said because we didn't pay attention to it, but you're signing your life away, and I don't care. And I just confirmed that if I ever did need to be helicoptered out, he wouldn't refuse to call the helicopter. And it was just quite a thrill to have the helicopter and the sounds of the helicopter adding to the drama of the negotiation, and all of my favorite parts of it, ultimatum with time pressure. It was a serious Apocalypse Now moment. And I've got to give a call out to Sean for mentioning the human conscience, which we have yet to do on the Don Sullivan Show. So, but I think for now, we probably should just sit here at this lunch stop, which is actually kind of amazing. As I said, these folks, porters, hundreds of them, literally carry the camps from site to site. And we're sitting here waiting for the rest of our group, which we'll probably be waiting for quite a while for. And fortunately, the weather is okay at the moment. It usually isn't. But we'll see about the next few days when we start actually going up higher and higher and higher. So for now, the fun at Kilimanjaro is settled for the moment, and we will get back to you probably tomorrow. We're not going to do much tomorrow. I don't know why, but the next day is when we'll start up into the 15 to 16,000 foot realm. So, all right, everybody, thanks for listening in, and we will talk to you tomorrow. See ya.
Take care.
Welcome back again to the Don Sullivan Show, folks. Today, after the hike of day 6, we've ascended pretty significantly up to about a height of 14,300 feet today. This is where we'll stay. An utterly beautiful, incredible day. Some of the pictures which I'll post along with the show are spectacular. We are in between Mount, trying to remember the name of that? Mount Missouri. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. And Kilimanjaro, or just a little bit off to the south of Kilimanjaro in the saddle. And we will have a very long day tomorrow. We'll ascend another couple of thousand feet. And day 8, which will be the day after tomorrow, we will ascend to the top. And that will be 4,000 feet. And who knows what kind of weather. So thought I would get a short, small segment in here. Looks like most of our crew is intact. I am going to emphasize a couple of aspects of this overall experience here, which is something I really did not expect. We are, and Sean and I both are in agreement that we are developing a tremendous kinship with the general staff here. Not necessarily the corporation, of course, that runs this or many of the other tours around here. In fact, we'll have probably plenty to say about those institutions in the future, but the staff is just utterly incredible. And I know I gave a big story yesterday on how they move town to town, or they move the town from campsite to campsite. And that's really not hyperbole. That's exactly what they do. And they are incredibly happy people. They are incredibly gracious. They want to do everything in the world they can do for you. And they are oppressively compensated. So for you folks in the Don Sullivan Show that know I don't like to get political in this show whatsoever, but we were able to discover today that the average, or the highest salary for the porters, not necessarily the guides, they get a little bit more, but for the porters, and there are dozens of them, is $10 US dollars a day. And it can go down as low as $4 US dollars a day. And I guess they work doing what they're doing here, then probably 13, 14 hours a day. And at the same time maintaining an incredibly positive attitude. This is I've obviously been in Africa many times for Virtualize Africa, along with my partner and friend Deji Kamalafe at VMware, but this is even a more revealing experience than I would have ever expected before. So we'll get back to another segment tomorrow when we are in apparently much colder weather. I'm shivering now and then, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. Not wet, this rain is intermittent, but so I'm a little bit concerned with it. But otherwise, cardiovascularly, breathing in general, the hikes are, to be honest, pretty easy so far. Benefit of living in Colorado and doing what I do. So until then, tomorrow again, we'll be back and see you. All right, folks, this is Don back. Here we are in the afternoon, a beautiful afternoon, I might say, looking down on both Kenya and Tanzania. Of about 50 degrees. It rained this afternoon, but right now I'm out here and I've got the immense privilege of getting to talk on the Don Sullivan Show with one of the staff members of the tour company that we're with. We're going to leave all this anonymous at the moment, but I think you're going to really enjoy hearing some of the answers to some of these really important questions here in regards to this whole endeavor, this walkabout that me and Sean and the Don Sullivan Show is taking you on. So, hi there, sir. Again, we're going to keep you anonymous, but say hello to my audience.
I'm fine. I'm lucky to meet you, my friend.
Okay. So my first question here is, there are glaciers here on top of Kilimanjaro, and it's really at the equator. Why are there glaciers at all?
Good question. And I'm sure if you could come some years back and see how glaciers were very big, very close to the trail going to the summit. It used to be like only 5 steps, and then you could touch the glaciers with 80 meters high, and now
Those were the snows of Kilimanjaro.
yes, yeah. So I would say it's because of the altitude, but scientifically, most of the scientists, including me, I can say that remain unanswered question is one of the wonders, because people from South African scientists, they came here in 2017 and they stayed for 20 days just doing that kind of research. They wanted to know how this can happen very close to equator and the glacier is there. And they came out with the answer that it should be one of the world wonders. They have no answer.
It's just absolutely amazing when you think about it, and of course we all talk about, and it's such a major concern in the world that the Earth is getting warmer, and that the glaciers all over the world, some of the world, are melting for one reason or another, and I don't know if there's really a scientific consensus as to why or not. I don't think there is, but it's clear that glaciers are melting. But on Kilimanjaro, they seem to be dissipating at a faster rate than other places in the world. So, what other factors might be involved in some of these glaciers here in Kilimanjaro actually melting faster?
Actually, I can agree with them. The first reason they claim that because of the global warming and the deforestation. As you can see, Kilimanjaro, around Mount Kilimanjaro, is surrounded by the forest. But we cannot see them that they are deforestations, but there are other things behind in it and it's untold. Let me tell it. In 2013 up to 2017, there was one guy from abroad used to climb Mount, not through all the known routes, but behind it. He used to come and cut the glaciers with potters and put it in deep freezers, taking to the airport and then export them.
To where?
To abroad, but
somewhere mysteriously.
Yes. So after that, then the glacier started melting rapidly.
Hey, if there's anybody out there in the Don Sullivan Show audience that knows of some bar someplace in Europe that's actually selling drinks, especially with Kilimanjaro ice, let us know. We need to report that.
My own opinion, because it's untold, I don't think so, because I have seen in Europe they have glaciers, but why this person used to come and collect it from there? I don't think it was for the research, but after he completed doing that, then the glaciers started melting.
How much ice can 100 porters, although I've seen them move towns around here, how much could they really take at once to actually effectively effectuate the glaciers being reduced that fast?
He used to come with like 60 porters up to 80 porters, and then all of them could carry the deep freezers with glaciers inside.
That's just amazing. It's like something out of a bad Stephen King novel, but okay.
Let us go with that. We stick on that global warming, but the truth should be told.
All right, so on a different subject, we noticed yesterday we were walking about 13,000 feet, and there had been a big fire a couple of years ago. And the thought came to me that we can't have fires at 13,000 feet in the United States because we're over tree line. And I wonder how fire behaves differently, or how this fire behaved differently than it would at lower altitudes.
I can say because of the oxygen, it should be not the fire here, but we have strong wind. When the oxygen tries to lower the fire, but the strong wind also blows up, I can say that was the reason. Because when we tried to stop the fire, porters and guides, they tried to make a trench so that the fire could come and stop where we have dug. Sometimes you find it was skipping.
Yeah, it's just, we call it jumping, jumping the fire break.
Yes. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that despite the lack of oxygen feeding the fire, the wind overcame that.
Yes, I can say that because the truth is there we have less oxygen, but the fire was faster. Yeah.
Now, on a different subject, which I just find amazing, you've been part of hiking staffs here for a very long time, and I won't again say how long, but it's been for a long time. I want to know, one of the most important factors for climbers like me and this group that I'm with in actually successfully summiting or not having a miserable time here, I'll put it that way.
I can say actually you have to erase all the negative information on your brain that you have read on brochures, on YouTube, and you trust yourself that I can do it. And the other, also walking slow. Here we have the language we say pole pole. Follow the instructions that you are told. Eat.
I feel bad now.
Don't feel bad. That is the truth, because we have heard here people, they are got good experience hiking on Everest, and they think because this is free standing mountain that you can walk or hike freely, and then the altitude issues, they can't make it.
Well, is the altitude effect different here than, say, it would be in Nepal?
Yeah, it affects different because when you see visually, it seems easy. You can go faster.
Oh, that doesn't seem easy. Don't say that.
No, not you. But I'm talking about my experience, not you. I'm sure we will do it. So, and then people, they can take advantage of the easiest by looking, but the altitude is the same and it's there to deal with someone. Yes. And also one step at a time, that matters. Eating as much as you can, because a day when we hike, we burn lots of calories and also sugar. So if we recommend you should have snack bars and you eat the moment you need, you eat, you drink. That is all about that.
Well, I know even somebody like me who's been diabetic my whole life, and I have sugar spikes, and I'm not supposed to eat sugar at home. I'm eating whatever they give me. And it's really important because people, when you get to high altitude, generally don't want to eat. They lose their appetite tremendously, and they have trouble because of that, right?
Yes, for sure. Yes, if you have and you take a caution, that is a small thing. It means that if you don't eat like sugar issues, you cannot make it. No, you keep staying on what you believe, but physical and mentally matters most. That I can do, and then you do it.
So let's change subjects a little bit here, because the staff is amazing. So basically, and this is the only way I can describe this, every night we sleep in a small portable town, and then we get up, we get served breakfast, and then the tour groups go out and hike, and then they tear down this town, put it in bags, and then put it on their heads, run past us, and by the time we get to the next campsite, they have reassembled this town. How is this humanly possible?
Actually, first of all, I would like to tell you that you didn't know it. In Africa, most of us, we are raised since our childhood carrying stuffs on our head, that so that our neck muscles are used to it. So it's easy for porters, for us, when we do that, to tear down the township and then run faster to the camp, set it faster, and then come back to motivate our friends, clients. And then we love people, we love clients. We need to show them how we care and love them. That is why we do that.
Well, what I'll tell you is it seems chaotic to us, but it's unbelievably efficient. I'm really not kidding when I say they have a town and they put it in bags and then move it, and they have it built before we even get there. And obviously, I'm not moving terribly slow, but hasn't been a day yet where my tent hasn't been ready by the time I got there. It's amazing.
For us, that is the first priority for customer care. So we need to care you guys, and so that we know after the trip you're gonna be our ambassadors. You go back home, you tell your friends, this is how the experience was. We want you to take our goodness.
Well, we are certainly doing that. And note to the United States, customer service is alive and well some places in the country, just not the United States. So, got a final question here. Are we going to make it to the summit?
For sure. 100% you're going to make it.
Even with the weather?
With a great smile.
With a great smile. I already have a smile talking to you and all the staff here. You guys are absolutely wonderful, and I think we'll end it at that. And again, keeping this as anonymous as possible. You all can infer why I want to do that, but we'll be back tomorrow. I guess we'll be at 14,500 feet tomorrow night. We'll be back and see if I can talk to you and not slur my words because of the extra altitude tomorrow. So, anything else to say? Anything else I missed?
Get ready to hear this. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. We'll be on tomorrow night, and after I get up to 14,000, we're going to be summiting in 3 days, assuming I can do it. These folks here will be carrying me up, I think, if I'm not able to. But until then, I'll end this segment and see ya. Hello again, folks, and welcome back to the Don Sullivan Show here on Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. We've had a very eventful last couple of days. This is now day 7 into the trek, day 5 into the hike, and we are on the eastern slope of Mount Kilimanjaro, looking over at the very jagged, I guess it's Mount Meru, and up at the daunting slopes that we're going to now be heading northwest up the Grand Traverse Trail. We spent the day traversing significant basalt fields. I have to look up exactly when the last major eruption of Mount Kilimanjaro was. I'd guess from looking at the basalt and the shocked quartz in it, it's likely in the 50,000 year range, but it was pretty amazing. The hiking itself across basalt in general is always, it's always difficult. The rock is very jagged, and you're up and down, and you're always got the potential to hurt yourself. But the guides were great, and everything has gone pretty well. So we're sitting here at 12,000 feet, and getting ready to start really going up. Remember, the summit is at 19,000, so we have 7,000 feet to go up in the next 3 days. And there'll be 2 days coming down. We will stay day 8 or night 8 in the crater inside the ash itself, which should be very, very interesting. And I've heard also that there is, when you get up to the top, lots of samples of obsidian. Some other interesting observations. I am very amazed at the lack of animals. There's very few. There's elands and eland, which is a deer-like creature, and wildebeest every once in a while, I've been told, but we haven't seen them in the last 3 or 4 days. Really haven't seen anything other than ourselves. The porters on these trips are absolutely amazing, and there's so many of them, and of course they are highly underpaid. Note to the Tanzanian government, and they are highly underinsured, as I said the other day. Double note to the Tanzanian government. We're actually going to get anonymously one of the staff to come and answer some geological questions. He had some very interesting things to say in a segment to follow, probably maybe later tonight here on day 5 or in the next couple of days. Yeah, who knows if we'll be able to breathe well enough to actually perform an interview in the next couple of days. I think so, but I'm not sure. But as I digressed, I wanted to talk a little bit about the porters and the overall staff. There's a lot of them. We get going on the hike. We hiked about 6 miles today, and they break down camp, put it all in their camp bags, take up to, my guess it's 20 kilograms, put it on their heads and walk with it balanced on their heads. And we're talking 20 or 30 of them for a small group. And the cooks and the servers included. And then get here before us and then rebuild the camp. Basically what they're doing is they're breaking down the town, walking with it on their heads, beating us here by enough time to actually have the town rebuilt by the time we get here at 12,000 feet. And I assume they're going to be doing the same thing up at 14, 17, and 19,000 feet. So pretty amazing stuff overall. So for the moment, I'm going to end this segment, and hopefully we'll be back with one of the staff to answer some geological questions, and Sean will be back as well. We had some interesting encounters 2 days ago, but fortunately all that's resolved on this particular tour. And we are moving a little bit ahead of the major part of this group, but that seems to all be okay now. So until next segment, see ya.